All right, we're here with Becky Fletcher, the new assistant coach for the Gophers Soccer team. And Becky, you just got announced today, but I was hearing whispers from the coaching staff that they were really excited about getting a top candidate, and clearly that was you. So you're coming in with some great experience. You've coached at Ole Miss and Auburn and the SEC, but also Tennessee Tech and then Erskine College, which we'll talk about a little bit, your alma mater. And so you have a really wide array of experience, and I think that's probably why the coaching staff was so excited to bring you in. What's it like to be announced and be officially on the staff?
I'm ecstatic. I couldn't be more excited about joining the Gopher family. Just actually went up there this past week, and it's an amazing institution. It's gorgeous. It's not cold up there right now. And being from the South, that's everybody's like, well, it's cold. And yeah, it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. And I'm so excited. I met with some of the girls. I cannot wait to get started working with the young ladies there, and I couldn't be more excited.
I think the way Stephanie has said that she sells it to recruits is, it's not cold during soccer season. It's how she'll sell it. She'll say, don't worry, it's not cold in August or September, maybe in October, maybe November, but by that point, it'll be a good problem to have if we're playing in the national tournament. So don't worry about it.
Yes, we'll deal with it.
Right.
It's going to be perfect. Yeah, I love all 4 seasons, and now I'm going to go see them all. It's all good.
Well, in this last year, you mentioned before we started recording, you were actually down in Texas too, so you were really in maybe the polar opposite weather-wise. But before that, for a few years at least, you were at Ole Miss, which has been a really successful SEC program, and you've had kind of experience there and at Auburn. What's it like kind of coaching in that conference, and how would you compare, as a coach, how did you always think of the Big Ten, and how would you kind of compare those two schools? I think people generally assume the SEC and the Pac-12, I think, are a little bit a step above the Big Ten. How did you look at the Big Ten when you were coaching down there?
It's funny. I've played against Minnesota on the other side, and they're quality. They're athletic. They're tough as nails. They're hard to break down. They were well coached. So it's just watching and scouting. You have your Penn States, you have your Ohio States, you have, Rutgers, for goodness sakes. Some really quality teams. And I think the Big Ten is right there. And it's just getting that perception nationally that the Big Ten's their women's soccer is just as good as anybody else's in the country. Michigan, I'm forgetting some huge teams, huge programs that have been successful and will compete nationally every year. So I think that it's just not even getting the word out, but kind of. The SEC has the SEC network. I think that's been able to kind of amp it up with the Big Ten network. Hopefully more people will continue to subscribe, and the word will get out slowly but surely.
And now I'm only remembering when you say this, the Gophers are playing Ole Miss this year, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
So Steph clearly went out and found someone who could give her the inside game on a key non-conference matchup.
Yes.
You're going to have to do the full scouting report before that one.
Right. Matt Mott, he's the coach there. He's one of my best friends, and we actually worked together at Auburn too, so I've worked with them for a number of years. It's going to be very fun, very interesting leading up to that battle, because I'm sure it's going to be quite the battle.
Well, and you've had other experience too as a head coach, and so you've come through kind of smaller programs where you had some time at your alma mater at Erskine College, which I would love to ask you about. Their mascot, I need to look this up. I just loved this.
If you notice, the colors, I'm getting back to my roots.
It's so good. The mascot, the Flying Fleet.
Flying Fleet.
Just one of the best. That's so good.
I can remember it's a small Division II school called Due West, South Carolina, and we don't know what it's due west of. That was always the joke. There were bumper stickers that said "Due west of what," and that was what had on your car. We would ride in this. It was kind of a charter bus. It was like a 40-seater kind of thing. And it had the mascot on the side of it. And I remember stopping at a gas station. I don't know why we stopped, and a man came over and asked if we were the Flying Feet and if we were a skydiving team, because it's like has a little plane with this. It used to be an old a biplane with a guy that just was smiling, and I was like, that's not very intimidating. You're not exactly. So it's funny. I really appreciate having gone to this tiny little college. I wouldn't have changed it for the world. A lot of people were like, "How'd you go there?" Didn't have a traffic light. I mean, it's small. It was smaller than my graduating class in high school. So it had about 1,000 students, but I had a great education. Had a great coach who's now at Georgia. I feel like I was around really good people, and it just set me up to know how to work hard. But going from different levels, so being at a Division II school where you win a conference championship and you get a T-shirt or a sweatshirt, going from there to going to Auburn, going to Tennessee Tech, it's just been at every level. I appreciate anything that I'm given, and I'm going to work hard. And it's one of those things, I'm not afraid to do really anything. If you ask me to do it, I'll do whatever you ask me to do. So, been there, we'll continue to do it. Yeah. Pretty much.
Well, in Tennessee Tech, your experience coaching there is kind of a great tie-in. In Minnesota, we really only have the one Division I program, but there's a lot of D2 schools, and then there's a lot of what I would describe or I think are considered kind of mid-major D1 schools just outside of the border. So down in Iowa and the Dakotas, a lot of programs like that where Minnesotans go and play in those places. And so you've kind of seen those different levels. I mean, how would you describe kind of the difference of going from like a Tennessee Tech and into an SEC? Is it that, just the speed of play, is the physicality, is it kind of all the above? What was the transition for you kind of going from coaching in a mid-major setting to an SEC setting?
It was, it was for sure different. We had, we did have some quality kids at Tennessee Tech, and I had Player of the Year and Freshman of the Year in the conference my first year there, second year there. But it's a different level. You may not have the same athleticism from player 1 to player 25. It's more of you need to find your marquee players in key spots, key positions, and go from there. So I was blessed with some really good, nice players at Tennessee Tech, but it's a different level. And from recruiting standpoint, I recruited more regionally there, within probably a 5-hour drive. You could get from Cincinnati to Atlanta in about 5 hours there, so you had quite a few states. But the state of Tennessee, it was hard to keep the top players. Didn't want to come to Tennessee Tech, and I know that's hard for a lot of mid-level schools. Getting the top players want to go to your bigger marquee programs, and that's understandable. But each person has to find the right fit for them. That's what I'm so excited about Minnesota. I've never worked at a school or institution where you can get kids. The majority of your kids could come from in-state. The quality of state soccer is so high in Minnesota, and I'm so excited about that. Cannot wait. And just meeting some of their players right now, they're all from the state of Minnesota, and we had great conversations about what club they played for and how many years they've been playing together since they were like in the 8th grade. And that's the coolest thing to me.
Yeah, it's crazy when you see these girls who start playing in club, or even there's random kind of pipelines like a club over in Wisconsin, pretty close to Minnesota, where there's been like 3 Gophers who have come out of it, or a town in Iowa where there's been like 3 Gophers come out of it. So it's funny how those things happen. And you're coming in, to a staff where it's not a giant staff, but people kind of have certain roles. People focus on. You mentioned recruiting. Was there kind of an expectation of what they were looking for when they brought you in terms of kind of what you'll help with versus own and those kind of things?
Yeah, and Steph and I have had quite a few conversations about just from our friendship throughout the years of our pretty much defensive philosophy, just our philosophy, the style we like to play, and knowing her team and the success of the Gophers, and knowing how they play, pretty much the defensive side of things I think I'm going to focus on, from the back line to just team defending. But also, I think we're gonna sit down as a staff and look at strengths and then piece it together then. I'm comfortable going anywhere on any side of the ball. I said I don't mind shooting on the goalkeepers, but you probably don't want me to be in charge of the goalkeeper training. I can do it, and based on my previous his two head coaches were both goalkeepers themselves, they would be like, "Oh, she can do a session," but I would rather Brad. I feel like they're in very, very, very good hands with Brad.
Brad can stay back there. He can
exactly. Brad can. That's his forte. I think he does a very good job at it. So I'm just excited. I think once we get together as a staff and have those conversations, that we'll be able to piece it together and have every pretty much spot covered. But having experiences from recruiting to the academic side of things to equipment, I feel like I have all those experiences, and she can plug me in wherever she'd like for me to have. But the defensive side right now, I know we're going to have some talks, especially this weekend. We're going to have some discussions over exactly what personnel and that kind of thing.
Yeah. And you kind of, so you handling defense would make sense. Crystal, who just left to become the head coach at McAllister, did a lot of the defensive work for the team. You have just a very simple challenge ahead of you. One returning starter, nothing too tough, and moving her from outside to inside. So I'm sure it'll be simple. So there's going to be a lot of new blood on the back line, and that's one of the spots. Steph does a really good job of kind of building. The program has done a good job of kind of building players as they move through the program, kind of getting minutes and then growing that role, and then eventually becoming starters and contributors. But the back line is one spot where she doesn't do as much kind of cycling through because that consistency can kind of matter. So you mentioned kind of talking about personnel this weekend and meeting players. Have you ever had a situation like that where you have to come in fresh and it's like, you meet everyone for the first time and try and coordinate what is almost a brand new back line and a new keeper.
Yeah, right, I know. She added that part. She gave me that little tidbit kind of on that side note. I was like, oh, okay. No, I think it's actually kind of exciting, and I'm hoping that the young ladies, I hope the players are excited because, it is. It's kind of, they're going to get a new opportunity. And I think I'm just going to come in with just some fresh eyes. Crystal did an amazing job. She's doing an amazing job at McAllister. I think very highly of her and have a ton of respect for her. Just coming in with just a different set of eyes, and then we'll try to get the best combination. And I think that hopefully we're going to make it successful.
Yeah, it's going to be. I think it will be really exciting. I told one thing that Coach Golan has done a lot of is, like, no one is guaranteed a spot. It's always very competitive. People have to come in and earn their role. And so I frankly think, like I mentioned once when I was kind of speculating who might start on the back line, this is one of probably the most rare situation I can think of where, like, freshmen can come in and compete and earn a spot, and it's wide open. And so, some of those upperclassmen might take some of those minutes too, but it's pretty wide open, and then also a new coach coming in, so those freshmen will come in and they'll just have to start working immediately. It's going to be fun to watch in camp.
But I'm hoping their eyes are a little bit wide, like, oh my gosh, I can get minutes. Like you said, how exciting is this? Let's go in and compete a little bit and see who ends up on top.
Yeah. And so you're going to come in. Are you over the summer? I know there's kind of limited availability for certain players, or there's probably some restrictions on kind of like hours spent in the program. But what are you thinking in terms of kind of ramping up into camp? What kind of possibility will you have to kind of interact with players and get to know folks before August?
That's a good question. I'm planning on actually I'll go recruiting this weekend, and then I'll be up there next weekend. I'm going to sell a house and try to buy a house, but waiting to sell before we buy. But we'll get up there, and I know camps are going to be going on. I'm sure some of the girls are going to be around. I know quite a few of them are around right now working out with the strength coach. Just getting to know them off the field, because we can't. We're pretty hands-off. Strength and conditioning, they can do that with them, but we can't really touch them. But just getting to know them as people, I think, is the thing I'm looking most forward to. And then we'll get going with soccer. And I think that's going to, I'll watch film. I love watching film. So I'm going to try to get caught up as much as I can. And then I'll get to see the live product, hopefully. Pretty quickly rolling into preseason.
Well, and what's it going to be like for you kind of coming from a lot of those programs down south, and you have a lot of experience working in maybe an area where our current coaching staff hasn't been as much. Does that tie into recruiting? I mean, you mentioned that we can get a lot of talent in Minnesota, but Do you have kind of in your mind like girls you saw, back when you were at Ole Miss, back when you were down south? Are there kind of connections there that could kind of expand the reach a little bit?
I think there are, and just having connections with different club coaches. I know Steph has connections with club coaches. Brad does too. Just bringing in that group of people that I have connections with, and then just trying to find the right fit. And it's based on culture. Like, do they fit the culture for Minnesota soccer? And that's going to be the number one, I think, thing we're looking for. I know what type of player. I think we can all pick good soccer players, but culture, do they fit in, and are they going to buy into the entire program? That's going to be the number one priority. And we will have, again, tons of conversations about what do you think about this one, what do you think about that one. So I know Steph and I are going recruiting this weekend, so it should be fun. I think we'll at least be able to get on the same page from a personnel standpoint, and I'm going to be able to watch some commitments and get on the same page. But I'm ready to go, ready to hit the ground running.
And you and I joked before we were recording about how you will come in and bring your very, very nice Southern accent up north. And obviously, I reminded you that it's not like Minnesota is known for having a calm, neutral accent. So you will be drowning in the Minnesota accent as you bring a little bit different flavor, and you can mix it up that way. Thanks so much for talking to us, Becky. It's so exciting to have you come to the program. I think I saw some of the players after Krista left for McAllister, and they said, "Oh wow, it's going to be such a big change." And so I think having someone with your experience is going to be really exciting for the program.
Well, I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for taking the time today. Can't wait to get to know you, and then you can help me with my Minnesotan speech.